Night falls over occupied Europe. The air is heavy with fog, the kind that hides engines and intentions. From the distance, the faint hum of twin propellers drifts through the darkness. It's not a bomber's roar, nor a fighter's scream. It's softer, almost like a whisper cutting through the clouds. The British Mosquito. A plane so light it was built not from steel, but from wood. As it passes over German searchlights, the beams sweep across the sky, but find nothing. Too fast, too high, too quiet. By the time radar catches a hint of it, it's already gone, vanished back into the clouds like a ghost of war. Inside the Luftwaffe headquarters, confusion turns to disbelief. Reports pour in. A wooden aircraft striking military targets deep inside German territory. Radar barely detects it. Interceptors fail to catch it. Even Hermann Göring himself, once the proud architect of the German Air Force, stands furious and bewildered. How, he asked, can the British produce a plane made of furniture that outflies our best metal fighters? The irony cut deep. The Reich, obsessed with machinery, precision and steel, humiliated by a creation born from plywood, glue, and craftsmanship. And so began Germany's race to copy the uncopyable. Engineers scrambled, sketches piled, and prototypes rose. But each one failed. Heavier, slower, less graceful. The Mosquito was not just a plane. It was a philosophy. A paradox that haunted Göring himself. How could something so light carry the weight of victory? How can something made of wood shame the empire of iron? The war's strangest duel had begun between steel and wood, arrogance and innovation, power and subtlety. By the early 1940s, the skies above Europe had become a theater of steel. Every nation believed that strength came from metal, heavier planes, thicker armor, more guns. The Luftwaffe embodied this philosophy, its aircraft forged from alloys, its design centered on domination. Across the Channel, Britain faced an impossible question: how to keep building planes while metal grew scarce. Aluminum was rationed. Industry was strained. Every ounce of steel was already promised to Spitfires, bombers, and tanks. Then came an idea, dismissed by many, laughed at by some. Engineer Geoffrey de Havilland proposed a combat aircraft made not from metal, but from wood. It would be light enough to outrun enemies, fast enough to outmaneuver radar, and simple enough to be built in furniture factories and carpentry shops across Britain. Many in the Air Ministry thought it absurd. A wooden bomber sounded like desperation, not strategy. Yet de Havilland persisted. His team crafted a design so clean, so aerodynamic, that it needed no defensive guns. Its speed would be its shield. When the first Mosquito took flight in 1940, it shattered expectations. Built from balsa and plywood, sealed in resin, the plane was so light that it climbed faster than any contemporary bomber, even rivaling fighters. It could carry bombs to Berlin and return before enemy radar could respond. To Germany, this defied logic. Their engineers could not understand how wood could withstand such stress, such precision. When Göring heard of it, his pride took the first hit. The Mosquito was not only a marvel of design, it was a symbol of British defiance. A plane that turned scarcity into strategy, craftsmanship into supremacy. The Mosquito was more than a plane. It was a study in opposites. Against the German Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs, all armored and bristling with guns, the Mosquito seemed fragile. Yet fragility became its greatest strength. At a time when engineers measured power in weight and fire, the Mosquito measured it in speed and grace. It could cruise at over 400 miles per hour, faster than any German bomber, faster even than many fighters. Its wooden frame absorbed radar waves, giving it a natural stealth that science had not yet named. To understand the contrast is to understand two philosophies of war. Germany's war machine was built on domination through force, precision metalwork, rigid hierarchy, and complexity. Britain, pressed by necessity, turned to ingenuity and adaptability. The Mosquito became the embodiment of that spirit. Where German factories required vast resources and strict control, the Mosquito was built in small workshops, even in furniture companies, decentralized, resilient, and unpredictable. Where the Luftwaffe poured effort into massive designs, like the Heinkel HE-177 or the Me-410, the Mosquito's simplicity allowed it to evolve. A bomber, a reconnaissance aircraft, a night fighter, even a pathfinder leading raids. Its pilots described it as alive, light, responsive, almost intuitive. German pilots described it differently, a ghost. They rarely saw it. They only felt its presence when the explosions began. When the Reich attempted to imitate it, they faced a paradox of their own making. Their industries could not handle the organic precision of wood. Their adhesives failed in cold air. Their designs, bound by bureaucracy, lacked the elegance of innovation born from desperation. Thus, the Mosquito revealed a quiet truth. Flexibility often outpaces strength. By late 1943, the skies over Europe had become a theater of contrast. Steel versus wood, force versus finesse. Night after night, as German spotlights carved through the darkness, the Mosquito slipped between them like a phantom. Its twin engines whispered at high altitude, too fast for interception, too light for radar to hold. In the control towers below, German officers watched their instruments blink in confusion. Nothing registered until explosions rippled across their maps. A power station silenced here, a Gestapo headquarters reduced to ash there. By the time the alarms rose, the intruders were already fading into the black. One night raid became legend. A formation of Mosquitoes, unescorted, crossed deep into German territory to strike Berlin itself in broad daylight. As they closed in, Göring's headquarters prepared a response, scrambling fighters to intercept. But none could climb fast enough. The Mosquitoes reached the heart of the Reich, released their bombs, and turned for home, gone before the first German planes even appeared. From his office, Göring raged. Witnesses recalled his words. "It makes me green and yellow with envy to see the Mosquito. The British have the genius to build beautiful things out of wood. The Germans only know how to make metal." That confession, bitter, incredulous, marked a silent turning point. The Luftwaffe's dominance was cracking, not under bombardment alone, but under the weight of innovation it could not match. The Mosquito had proven that victory did not belong to the heaviest or the loudest. It belonged to those who could imagine differently, who could turn scarcity into strength and wood into a weapon. When the smoke settled and Europe inched toward 1944, the Mosquito had already rewritten the rulebook of aerial warfare. It was never the most numerous, nor the most armed, yet its legacy lay in the quiet humiliation it brought upon the German war machine. Every successful raid carried a message. Brilliance did not need armor. In German laboratories, engineers still tried to imitate what the British had achieved. But the very nature of the Reich's industrial philosophy stood in their way. Their attempts to craft a wooden equivalent, the TA-154 Mosquito, failed miserably. Poor adhesives, rushed design, and the obsession with rigid hierarchy doomed it before it ever reached the skies. The prototype crumbled under stress tests, its fuselage splitting where the Mosquitoes held firm. Meanwhile, the British aircraft continued its almost ghostly reign. It photographed enemy ports, dropped agents behind enemy lines, and struck factories with uncanny precision. In its wake, it left confusion and a kind of reluctant awe. German civilians began to call it Der Holzgeist, the wooden ghost. The Luftwaffe, once feared as the ultimate symbol of mechanical superiority, now found itself reacting rather than ruling. Göring's factories, stripped of materials and overrun by conflicting priorities, could not pivot fast enough to recover. The Mosquito had revealed the fatal flaw at the heart of Nazi industry, its inflexibility. When the war finally began to crumble around Berlin, few noticed how symbolic that failure truly was. The empire that worshipped steel was undone by wood, and by the ingenuity of those who refused to follow convention. The Mosquito had not just outflown the Luftwaffe, it had outfought it. In the quiet that followed the war, the Mosquito became more than an aircraft. It became a lesson, a reminder that progress does not always roar with the sound of engines or gleam with the shine of metal. Sometimes it hums softly through the grain of wood and the courage of unorthodox minds. The Germans, for all their engineering brilliance, had been trapped by their own belief in mass, weight, and might. Their machines were masterpieces of strength, but they were also monuments to excess. The Mosquito, by contrast, was born from scarcity. It thrived because Britain had so little to spare, and because its designers dared to see weakness as opportunity. This reversal of logic, that vulnerability can become strength, echoes beyond the world of aviation. It speaks to every moment in history when imagination triumphed over force. The Mosquito was not simply faster than its enemies. It was freer. Unbound by doctrine, unburdened by armor, it embodied a kind of thinking that totalitarianism could never reproduce. Today, one can still find a few surviving Mosquitoes, preserved in hangars or museums. The smell of their wooden fuselages lingers faintly in the air. Resin, lacquer, time. They are relics not only of a war, but of an idea that the human mind, when left to wander without fear, can craft miracles even from what seems fragile. And perhaps that is the quiet truth Göring never understood, that the mightiest machines of war are not made from steel, but from thought, and when thought flies, nothing can catch it.